The ban on Apple Watches is now in effect, and the tech giant fighting back. Company filing an emergency request to lift the ban on watch sales while the court considers the appeal. One report says the watch business generating roughly $17 billion a year. And joining us now is Creative Strategies CEO and Principal Analyst Ben Bajarin. Ben, it is great to see you. Let's get right down to what traders, investors, business people, Ben, what they want to know is what is the revenue impact of all this, right? Now, Morgan Stanley crunched the numbers for us. I don't know if you saw this. Here's their estimate, Ben. They say for every week that Apple can't sell the Apple Watch Series 9 and Ultra 2 in the U.S., by their math, the company's losing about $135 million in revenue. Now, to Apple, that is not material. That's not a lot, but it is coming in this broader context, Ben, where, listen, Apple's trying to get that top line moving again. You're, four quarters now, Ben, of declining sales of that company. So add it up for us. For investors listening right now, is this big deal, no deal? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the length of the ban. I mean, obviously, I think the numbers you estimated from Morgan Stanley, I've seen similars in terms of the size of the business, right? Apple ships anywhere between 30 and 40 million Apple Watches a year. Big numbers. Obviously, those periods are cyclical, right? They might sell more in a holiday season more than the upfront parts of first 6 months, first 3 or 6 months of the year. I think the stock is relatively, this news is priced in at the moment, but I think people are also betting that the sales ban's not going to last a full year, for example. So it's really, how does this get resolved and how long does this go out? But we've been checking with other retailers who still have some stock, which means that they did push some of that into the channel in advance of this. So it seemed like there was inventory, but I think they can't take new sales of that product post-ban, but they're still selling through that inventory that they have.
Well, I guess then what are the potential outcomes here? Would it be that Apple would have to pay Massimo for for this alleged patent violation? Would it be that Apple has to work on its own independently devised tech to do the same thing? I mean, what do you think happens here?
Yeah, so there's either going to need to be a software update that handles the way in which the blood oxygen sensor is being used that will get around the patent claim that's at issue right now. There are ways to do this that don't infringe on that patent. It really just comes down to how they would implement that software and how they would use that to manage the sensors that are being used to manage blood oxygen. So that's one possible solution. The other, I think, is, do they come to an agreement with Massimo, or does the government intervene? They just put in a request to appeal that injunction. But obviously, this is something that they want to resolve as fast as possible. And so I think pretty much everything's on the table. But like I said, I don't expect this to last really the full year, at least we hope not. So we want resolution sooner than later. But I think Apple's really trying to come at this from a software solution to start with, at least.
Ben, Apple, as you well know, is very skilled at managing its brand, its reputation. This is a bad headline, Ben. Do you think there's any kind of meaningful reputational hit that Apple takes over this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the challenge is that people will probably be more frustrated that they can't get a watch than they will about the patent dispute at claims. I think most people realize that these things happen, and this is not terribly uncommon, and it's not like Apple is a material sort of theft of IP. So I don't think this has much of a brand impact. Again, Massimo is a really very little known brand outside of some very small areas of medical or health enthusiasts. So I don't know. This doesn't really help them much from a brand standpoint either. But I think this really comes back to if people are in the market for an Apple Watch and they want to get one, having the latest and greatest available as soon as possible is obviously the best case scenario.
What about in terms of competition right now, Ben? Because the thinking might be that, okay, if people want an Apple Watch and they can't get one, they'll just wait. But the other thinking would be if there's something else out there that's comparable, that they'll get that instead. Is there a really good competitor out on the market right now?
I mean, there's always competitors. I think you tend to look at the iPhone base typically being very loyal to Apple. So obviously those within Android can buy Garmin's, they can buy Samsung watches, they can buy watches from Google. Apple just generically has the vast majority of the Apple Watch or the smartwatch share. And I think, again, they skew toward iPhone owners who want that for the ecosystem integration, and that's not something that you get with other products. So I think this is just more of a, if retailers have it in stock, then great, they're able to get those things. It looks like they had that through the Christmas timeframe. If not, I do think they'll wait. And like I said, going into this first post-New Year period, sales typically start to decline a little bit because it's a cyclical business. So resolving, I think, in the first quarter is probably the least impact to the overall financial bottom line.
And Ben, let's switch gears here a little bit, talk about another product. That's Apple's next big product, Vision Pro, the mixed reality headset. That's coming soon, reportedly here, Ben. So curious to get your take on that product. How excited you think, Ben, investors should be about Vision Pro?
Sure. I think the big thing is really just looking at this as a line of business that grows going forward. It sounds like even the limited volume that Apple will produce, they'll probably sell every one they can make in 2024. There is some interesting developments, I think, with the market. If you look at some of the App Store numbers in terms of popular apps, you'll see that Meta Quest is actually up there, showing that I think there is a continuing positive sentiment for mixed reality, which is really where I think the sweet spot is for these products, being able to mix the physical and the spatial worlds together. It seems like 2024 might be a very interesting turning point for mixed reality. Again, that's going to benefit Apple, but to some degree, I think it's going to help Quest and that ecosystem as it grows as well. So this is a good time for this trajectory. It's very, very early stages. Like I said, Apple obviously wants to not sell this price at $3,500 forever. So making it more affordable over line. But this is the first step in what I think everybody believes is the next big growth business for Apple.
And Ben, I'll get you out of here on this. This is the part of the interview where I ask you to take out your crystal ball, Ben. We're only roughly, let's call it a month or so out from when Apple next reports earnings, Ben. That'll be the big one, the big holiday quarter. You expecting good news from them?
Yeah, it seems like, at least from what you can tell from those doing checks on wait times, that that demand for iPhone stayed solid. It sounded like services in terms of the App Store might be up by, again, other people's estimates. So I think it will be good. I don't know if, again, we're going to be sitting on a record quarter. I don't expect it to be a disaster of a quarter. So I would say probably within line expectations. I think the one thing everybody's got to remember, Apple tends to be very, very good at managing those expectations, and they're typically within where at least they think they're going to be. I know they don't release guidance, much anymore, but they've been very predictable, and I think that helps in terms of understanding the quarter-over-quarter cadence. So, like I said, I think it'll be, decent. Again, I'm not predicting a blowout. I also don't think it will be bad. I think it will be in par with what people are expecting for a holiday quarter.
Ben, thanks so much. Good to catch up with you. Ben Bajarin, appreciate it.
Thanks. Anytime.